Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Armchair Athletes live stream. My name is Corey, and I am here to give you Week 8 waiver wire pickups, guys who are super low, under the radar, who would be very valuable to your team if you picked them up. Crazy week this week. Week 7 is what I'm referring to. Mark Andrews gets a season low 0.4 points on no catches and 4 rushing yards. The Buccaneers and Packers lose in surprising fashion. I don't think anybody was betting on the Buccaneers to lose to the Panthers after they fired their head coach. They sent Robbie Anderson packing. They shipped off their franchise running back in Christian McCaffrey, and they had their third stringer in PJ Walker in there as well. Same with the Packers. They lost to the Commanders. Just about anything can happen in this league. And then Kenneth Walker III, I'm going to bring him up because he was a waiver wire pickup going into Week 5, playing out of his mind right now. Had another career game, if we're going to call it that. He's just a couple weeks into his young career. Super exciting to see the prospect out of Michigan State develop a ton. So this is a live stream. I will be responding to all of your questions throughout this. But before we get started, like this video and subscribe. We are 4 subscribers away from 200. This channel has grown a ton over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I thank all of you for every single bit of it. If you like it, subscribe. It'll help a ton. And I'm doing a ton of fantasy analyses, case studies, and answering all of your fantasy questions to help you. So please, any likes and subscribes, if you get value out of this content at all, will be greatly appreciated. And your fantasy questions in the comment section below, I will answer those as soon as they come. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. Those are linked in the description. And also make sure you check out the Start 2 Sit 1 YouTube Shorts series that we have going on. I'll have 2 going up tomorrow, so that's Wednesday, and then 2 going up on Thursday. We do quarterbacks and running backs on Wednesdays, wide receivers and tight ends on Thursdays. And then if you comment at all on any of those videos, I answer those as quick as possible. Joseph in the chat, what's up, my man? I'm doing good. Ready for another crazy week of football and this thing that we call the NFL that is just throwing everybody off left and right. The Start 2 Sit 1s went pretty well, so if you followed those, Joseph, you did amazing, I'm sure. But yeah, lots to cover. So let's just get right into it. Honestly, which players should you grab off of the waiver wire ahead of Week 8? And then Joseph, I'll get to that question that I just saw pop up in a second as it renders. First guy I want to talk about is Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, CMC, this is what it's basically going to be about. He averages over 500 receiving yards per season. He's somebody I am a huge fan of. It's a match made in heaven. I think a lot of people were really crapping on the fact that he's going to the 49ers. They're saying, oh, he doesn't need to go there, doesn't need to add to a running offense that's already doing really well. But CMC has averaged over 500 receiving yards each season, and the yards after catch he may be able to get with those blockers could seriously bolster Jimmy G's numbers. The entire O-line is healthy. Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle are in, and I mean, we've got Deebo Samuel. Even if he's out this week, he's questionable right now. I mean, Jimmy G just came off his 3rd straight multi-touchdown game, threw for over 300 yards, even though the team did lose against the Chiefs. Let's see, Joseph got my first win, man. Now I'm 1-6 thanks to you. I am so glad to hear that, man. You know, a lot of people are trying to dig out of these holes right now. 1-6, it's not over. You could go on a huge run. You could win the whole thing for all we know. All you need to do is get in the playoffs and give yourself a chance, or at least carry some momentum into next year. So I'm glad I could help you get your first win pretty early on, Joseph. I just started doing this a couple weeks ago. So we'll talk about Mr. Brian Robinson and Kareem Hunt in case. Ooh, that's a good one to cover for sure. I'm going to cover that as soon as these coverages are done with 6 players that I want to go over for your waiver wire pickups. Then I'll get to you, Joseph, for sure. Good to see that you are succeeding in fantasy. That's what it's all about. So yeah, Jimmy G, super high on him when it just comes down to one of the best, if not the best, 2-way running backs in the league in Christian McCaffrey. Everybody's talking about, is he aging? Is he getting too old? Christian McCaffrey is 26 years old, and I know not everybody's going to be Frank Gore and play to the age of 35. He's still got a good few years left in him. I would say 26 is still in the middle towards the back half of a running back's prime. McCaffrey has plenty left to offer, and I think Garoppolo is going to take care of every bit of that. He's going to take advantage of every bit of that. Let's go to our second guy here, a guy who's really come onto the radar. As a result, we're going to keep talking Christian McCaffrey here because the fantasy world revolves around him. Deontay Foreman, excuse me. So we have Chuba Hubbard battling injury. We're not sure if he's going to be healthy for the next game, but I'm not sure his health status is really going to matter a whole lot when it comes to Foreman's usage because of how well Foreman did in Week 7. He exploded with 15 rushes for 118 yards. That's over 7 yards per carry on the ground, along with 2 receptions for 27 yards against Tampa. Look at the low ownership rate I mean, obviously that is going to skyrocket going into this week. It was in the 2 to 3% range going into last week. People took notice. They understood he was going to get a bulk of the carries. And now because he did so well with the bulk of the carries that he got, I think he is a definite pickup and maybe even a start depending on your team. If you want to talk about what decisions we could be making there when comparing Foreman to some running backs on your team, we can definitely address that. Numero tres, we've got Khalil Herbert. All right. So, I mean, this is a clear running back 2 on the Bears, but is it really? You know, we're talking about a guy who got a lot of usage when David Montgomery went down. This is more for deeper leagues, this move is, so I'm not going to be telling teams who are a portion of 8-team leagues to do this because I don't think it's the smartest thing to do in the world. But if you're in a 10 or a 12 or definitely a 14, go after Khalil Herbert, maybe use him as a depth piece for trading if you don't really believe he's going to be a long-term answer. I think there's potential here. In general, anybody who's thinking that David Montgomery is the sole option out of the backfield for Chicago should honestly stop doing so in the future. We'll look at his usage here. That's what I want to start on first with this full screen. I mean, talk about a balanced rushing attack. Justin Fields, which, by the way, the Bears are 2-0 when he runs the ball more than 10 times this year. They got that dub against the 49ers in that ugly monsoon/rain game, and they got this one in the past week here. On Monday Night Football in Week 7 against the Patriots, 14 rushes for 82 yards and a touchdown, had that throwing touchdown as well. Maybe a low-end QB1, but that's not this conversation. We have David Montgomery, 15 rushes for 62 yards, not bad, averaging a shade over 4 yards per carry, got the touchdown. And there's Khalil Herbert, guys, just sticking around. 12 carries for 62 yards, so the same amount of yards actually as Montgomery, just on less rushes, so 5.2 yards per carry. He is relentless. He's got one of the best yards per carry averages in the league right now, and I think he's somebody that really needs to be looked at. You know, even with David Montgomery 100% healthy, look at this usage. We've got 45 rushes. We still have a Bears team that loves to run the ball, and we know Monty's not going to run it all 45 times. He actually got it a third of those times. That's because Fields was involved. It's because Herbert was involved. And beyond there, I mean, Tristan Ebner really didn't get any usage until that game was all but done. But Herbert doesn't run a ton of routes in this team. I do want to preface, he'll catch one here and there. He did break free for a 25-yard touchdown on a screen pass where the Patriots decided to go all-out blitz and run a cover 0, which wasn't too smart. But I'm clearly not as high on Herbert in PPR as I would be in half-point PPR or standard. But I do still think that Herbert's a very solid option. He's getting a lot of usage. I'm not saying he's going to take over for David Montgomery, but statistically, I mean, when he's hurt and when he isn't hurt, talking about Montgomery, overall, if you look at the big picture, Herbert's actually been a more productive back. So that's kind of what I was thinking with that one. And again, we've got another low usage scenario, below 50%. That's what all of these will be. Gus the Bus. Yeah, Gus, we will talk about him for sure. Definitely somebody to look at in a run-heavy offense. Ravens ran the ball 73% of the time. That metric made my jaw absolutely drop against the Browns to get the slim 23-20 win. But the next person, what are we on? The fourth one, we'll go to Paris Campbell. Now, I was just talking about Alec Pierce, who I thought was actually going to take the wide receiver 2 spot away from Paris Campbell, as he was really rolling the last couple of weeks. I still like Alec Pierce. We've got a lot of changes in Indianapolis, so this is going to be more of a value pickup. Let me just adjust this real quick. There we go. 23 targets in the last 2 games with double-digit fantasy performances in each of those. You know, I think he's going to go quickly, as you can see. Less than 3% ownership rate right now. You know, not a whole lot of people have Paris Campbell on their team, and I think that will go up. So I think that Campbell is going to be a quick flip nonetheless, because we have to look at the context of this Colts team. I talk about it all the time. Context. What's going on in terms of injuries around these guys, usage of other positions, usage of this guy in relation to the remainder of the team. I mean, we had Matt Ryan throwing the ball. That's not the case anymore. So first we've got Jonathan Taylor. He's back and healthy. There's a QB change in Sam Ehlinger, which means we have no clue who his favorite target will be. Typically, you see backup quarterbacks rely heavily on the number one. That's Michael Pittman in this case. But Campbell's value is high, and literally nobody owns him. So stash him for this week. Maybe he goes off. Maybe he ends up being a nice depth piece in a trade package. Maybe you just let him sit around on your bench until you think you're going to get consistent production out of him. We don't know the run-pass percentage going forward of this Colts team now that Taylor is back and healthy and Ellinger's in there. There's a lot of variables, but what we do know is Paris Campbell has been performing. There's fantasy appeal, and you can use that to your advantage one way or another. So that's why I wanted Paris Campbell on this list. Next one's going to be Juwan Johnson, somebody literally nobody is talking about. And I think conversations are going to start to surface as we get into this week. Look, in a year where tight ends scoring over 5 points is considered a great thing. It's an accomplishment. It's something he would really hope for. I will gladly take a guy who has at least 5 targets in 4 of his first 7 weeks. Howard went off for 20 points in this last week in week 7. He's not the main focus of the offense. You've got Chris Olave running around there when Michael Thomas is healthy. He's a main focus, and many others, even Callaway. For the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, I mean, Olave is probably going to run away with it now because Breece Hall went down. London and Wilson's production has been stagnant, to say the very least. But throughout this entire QB cycle, we had Jameis Winston for a couple of weeks. We had Andy Dalton for a little bit. I mean, he's gotten looks. He's gotten the looks that he needed to get. 5 targets in 4 of his first 7 weeks for Juwan Johnson, excuse me. That's something I'm a big fan of at the tight end position, especially just considering everything going on with tight ends right now. I mean, the Mark Andrews thing, we'll get a guy who is performing, Mark Andrews is going to give you 15 on most days at least to do that. So obviously there's a lot of panic in the tight end market. I think he's fine. The Ravens just went with a really run-heavy set to try and beat out the Browns. Lamar didn't have a whole lot of time in the pocket, threw the ball a total of 16 times. They just ran him out of read option, uses his athleticism. So sorry for the Mark Andrews tangent, but I think that will be just fine. Let's go to the Tennessee Titans. This is a defense pickup. I didn't do one last week. Didn't see anything too appealing. This is one that I think is appealing strictly for week 8, okay? 2 very circumstantial reasons. For one, the Colts offense seemed to be turning a corner before Tennessee held them to 10 points and forced 3 turnovers on them. So those are things that are definitely going to produce points for you. And then 2, they play the Texans this week. The Texans scoring just 17.7 points per game. You're seeing it right here, bottom 5 in the league. That's a position that the Colts were in for a while too. So we're talking about a Texans offense that really isn't much better. I mean, there's Dameon Pierce, there's Davis Mills, there's Brandon Cooks. O.J. Howard had a nice game early on, and that's about it. I mean, they're yet to eclipse 24 points as a whole, and the Titans have been phenomenal at getting pressure on the opposing QB. They've got a 5-sack game this year, a couple of multiple ones as a whole. So I really just like the Titans for this week. I mean, week 8, we've got a bye week. We've got some defenses going on the bench, obviously, if they're not playing. So this could be a quick 8, 10, 12 points, depending on how much the Texans turn the ball over, how much they rely on Dameon Pierce, how unpredictable their game plan is. But that's who I had. So if you just joined, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're getting value out of this. I'm going to start answering the questions I see in the comments now. But those were our 6. So we've got Jimmy Garoppolo at the quarterback position, Deontay Foreman at the running back position over in Carolina, Khalil Herbert over in Chicago, Paris Campbell over in Indianapolis, Juwan Johnson over in New Orleans, and then the Titans defense, a very optimal matchup against the Houston Texans, which, can we just say the AFC South is the weakest division out there? Because I'm ready to say it. I mean, the NFC North is kind of there. You've got second and third place being the Packers and Bears at 3 and 4, and then the Lions just not winning a game in roughly a month now. But AFC South is pretty weak. Jags had a decent start. Texans aren't going anywhere, and the Colts and Titans just can't find an offense. The Titans pretty much just run through Derrick Henry. It's kind of always been that way. Let's go through the questions here. So, Joseph, should I trade Brian Robinson for Kareem Hunt in case Hunt gets traded? There's a lot of talk about guys in positions who aren't being utilized, trying to demand trades. I know there were some Elijah Moore talks before because Garrett Wilson's the number 1 guy, and it's a very heavy rushing attack with Breece Hall, who has now gone down for the season with a knee injury. So that's something, we did the breaking news on James Robinson going over there and probably being the feature back ahead of Michael Carter. But Joseph, Brian Robinson for Kareem Hunt in case Hunt gets traded. Robinson seems to be the primary guy in Washington. I wasn't extremely high on starting him last week, but the week before I was saying let's add this guy. Let's add this guy who had a go-ahead touchdown against Chicago. And, I mean, honestly, didn't average a whole lot of yards per carry, but was involved in the offense, was out-snapping Antonio Gibson, was out-snapping McKissick. Let's look at this real quick before we pull any strings here, Joseph. Again, congrats on the win. Let us see what we can do for you here. I'd love to look at usage as a whole. I'm just not sure I see Kareem Hunt getting traded. But I could see why you're saying, hey, if Kareem Hunt, kind of jumps ship, his agent vouches for him, however that process is going to work in his case scenario. Do I like him because I think he's going to be a starting back somewhere else, like the James Robinson scenario? That's something you definitely have to consider. Kareem Hunt, okay. And Let's see. Go week by week. Actually, we'll go as a whole here for now. All right, Joseph, just give me 1 second. Just pulling up a couple of different things that we can kind of cross-reference for you. Ooh, and then we got Christian Kirk or Tyler Boyd rest of the season. We'll address that as well. Congrats on the win, though, man. I mean, those are always exciting, especially when you're in a slump. I remember you sending me different versions of your team after you made a couple of deals, and I was thinking, how on earth is this dude 0-6? You're just playing against high-caliber competition. I think you were the one I even asked before, how many points are your opponents scoring, and they had some pretty good weeks, so... Okay, I think we're where we want to be. We'll cut to this. Not there quite yet. I want to look at usage as a whole. You know, in terms of Kareem Hunt being phased out of this offense, which is usually what happens right before a trade, you know, maybe the health of the player is trying to be preserved. Maybe the player just gets frustrated and demands a trade to try and get a more significant role the following week. I mean, we've got 56% in week 1, and he actually had more snaps than Chubb. You know, it was much closer to a 1-2 punch. I don't really think it's straight away from that. I mean, after that week, you could say there was a drop, but you got 46, 44, 49, 49, 43, 47. A lot of jumps up and down, and Chubb yet to go over 62% in terms of snap usage this year. There's been a couple of scenarios where they've overlapped. Obviously, 62 plus 44 is over 100, so a two-back backfield with Jacoby Brissett. Who on earth knows how much is going to change once Deshaun Watson's in there as well after serving the suspension. But honestly, Kareem Hunt sticking around that 50% usage rate, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not the best at projecting trades. We don't know what kind of conversations are going on back there. Then we look at Brian Robinson since coming in, and he's about in the same scenario. Difference with him is he's in a three-back system where he's clearly outperforming or out-snapping, I would say, because Gibson's been more of a passing back as of late. He is out-snapping Antonio Gibson, and then McKissick, who's actually listed as the running back 2, and Gibson's the 3. So he's been more of a pass specialist as of late, even though McKissick has way less snaps than Gibson. So maybe that shifts back. Gibson becomes the 2 and McKissick the 3. Not sure how updated this is. Brian Robinson as a whole, still not crazy about the yards per carry. We're starting to get a greater sample size. Maybe he's more of that bruiser back. Maybe he's your 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and you want to try and see if he can push the pile. Another thing I would look at in terms of just aspects of somebody that we want to watch is their usage, because I think you've told me you're in PPR. I mean, we have 2 targets in the most recent week against Green Bay in that win. 2 targets for 13 yards, not really used too much. So you need him to score. He is low yards per carry, and I thought he was an appealing ad. I really did, because of the usage against the Bears. Thought the Bears front 7 maybe stood up a little bit. I mean, when you have guys like Robert Quinn or Roquan Smith, who had a nice game yesterday, I thought that maybe it was just a tough run defense. The Bears have not stopped the run too well, if we're speaking as a whole, but last couple of weeks now they have, apparently, because Ramondre Stevenson didn't do much, and Damian Harris didn't do a whole lot either. Then you look at the Packers. I mean, I'm thinking Devondre Campbell, Rashawn Gary. Again, 3.7 yards per carry. It's a little better. He still has heavy usage, so in non-PPR, I love it. In PPR, I'm getting a little cautious with Brian Robinson. So, Joseph, with you... Let's see. Yeah, that was me. Yep, I thought so. And then last year I won the championship, and my record was 8-6, so I still have hope. Absolutely, man. I won the championship, I believe, at 8-6 too. I came in as a 3 seed and just kind of came from behind and shocked everybody. So never say never. I mean, you could start a run right now. You've got a solid team. You've got the squad to do it. So still addressing your Brian Robinson for Kareem Hunt ask here. They're really similar in usage rate. I think even if Hunt doesn't get traded, so is Hunt the guy that you are trading for? I just want to make sure it's Robinson for Hunt. So you have Robinson going for Hunt, right? I just want to confirm that before I move on. Assuming so, though. Robinson for Hunt. I think that's what you're saying, but if you want to confirm that in the comment for me, or in the comment section for me. Just the thing that scares me a little with Robinson, yes, he gets usage, and we'll see his usage in comparison to Kareem Hunt over the course of the past couple weeks. But really, just not a whole lot of efficiency right now. 3.4 yards per carry is not going to cut it for too long in the NFL. He's just that bruiser. He's the guy they're going to rely on right now. They had Heineke in there, so kind of backup city at the moment as they're going through their depth chart, experimenting with different things. And I mean, hey, now they're 3-4. Kareem Hunt, I don't want to say similar story. He's up there at 4 yards per carry. He's got 3 touchdowns to his name. But, I mean, you make a good point, right? We're talking about snap percentage. Usage has been so down the last couple of weeks. So, again, I understand why you're saying maybe he gets traded. He's still out there. He's just not getting used a whole lot. The snap percentage, if you look at the split, you would think it's a 1-2 punch. We've got 5 attempts for 4 yards and a reception on 2 targets. We've got 4 attempts for 12 yards, no receptions on 1 target. Maybe it does happen. In anticipation of a trade, when Hunt is the primary guy, he does get used. I'm trying to think of who would go after him. The Falcons are getting Cordero Patterson back pretty soon. The Jets have stacked up about as much as you possibly can. Maybe he's the complimentary back next to ETN, but I don't think they do ETN like that over in Jacksonville. I mean, there's options out there for sure, and if somebody gets hurt, he's definitely going to fill in. I just don't know if there's really a destination out there for him right now. Maybe Carolina goes after him. Is Carolina truly believing in Foreman? I feel like after that week, he at least gets another shot at it, right? Chuba Hubbard coming back from injury possibly this week, but even if he doesn't, I think Foreman's a good guy. If that trade were to happen in the future, I like it a lot because of what we've seen Hunt do in the past, 13 for 58. We've seen him as more of a pass catcher in past years. Right now, he's just got 19 targets through 7 games, so we're talking about a shade under 3 per game, 1 touchdown. He was a lot more involved in the passing game in the past, but this is under Jacoby Brissett. It's a new offense. It's still Kevin Stefanski, but new personnel under center. So Joseph, let's see. Robinson for Hunt. Yeah, you did confirm it. I'm not crazy about either of the guys right now, but if Hunt were to get traded, maybe you even make the trade after he gets traded, depending on his destination, because there's a lot of running back by committees right now. I can't say there's many places where Hunt goes out and becomes the primary guy. Do the Broncos add another name to the mix? It's Latavius Murray, it's Melvin Gordon, it's Mike Boone. I really don't know the answer to that, so maybe hold off, but I don't want you to anticipate a trade with Kareem Hunt and then him go out and have a really good week. I haven't heard too many trade talks. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes, but I'm not crazy about trading for Kareem Hunt at the current usage he's at right now. Maybe it's just a lull. Maybe it's just a Nick Chubb reliance. They're passing the ball a lot more with Amari Cooper being that primary target. And Njoku's going to be out this upcoming week, so it's going to be interesting to see if they rely more on that run game and give Kareem Hunt some more touches. But I'm not crazy about trading at the moment because what if Hunt doesn't go? Then his usage is just low and you're kind of stuck with him because you anticipated a trade that maybe wasn't set to happen. And then you have the variable with Deshaun Watson coming in soon. Do they change the offense there? Run him out of read option a little more, use his mobility, and then you have 2 backfields with Kareem Hunt on one side and Nick Chubb on the other. There's so many scenarios. I just don't think anticipating a trade and basing your own trade off of that is the smartest thing at the moment. But again, kind of up to you at that point. Christian Kirk or Tyler Boyd rest of the season. Let's see. Hey, Tino, how's it going? Drop your questions then. Let's see where we go with this. I'm going to try and help you out here. I feel bad, man. My start 2 sit 1 did well, and then you asked me a couple questions on the side, and they kind of went haywire because the NFL makes no sense right now. I mean, you've got Washington beating up on the Green Bay Packers. You've got the Panthers beating up on the Bucks. Just things we don't anticipate happening. I had Mark Andrews, and I felt very comfortable going into this week, and absolutely nothing happened. So, variety of things. So, Joseph, we'll get to your question, and then Tino, drop a question in the comments. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at your lineup right now, what questions do you have? Where are you unsure? What guys do you maybe want to go after in the waiver wire? Again, I'll give you guys the names, but you can go back towards the beginning of the video to kind of get a more in-depth analysis of it. We got Jimmy Garoppolo, Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert, Paris Campbell, Jawan Johnson, and the Titans defense all under 50% ownership rate. They're probably available in your leagues. At least a couple of them would be. And then from there, what do you do? Do you plug them in this week? Titans are kind of my plug-in for week 8 if your defense is on bye, depending on who you have, because they're going up against the Texans offense that just cannot manufacture points. So, Tino, drop some questions in the comment section here. Let me know what you are curious about. We're talking to Joseph right now. Christian Kirk or Tyler Boyd rest of the season. Tyler Boyd obviously being in that 1A, 1B, 1C offense, and then Christian Kirk kind of in the same scenario, but just higher up. He's been getting a bulk of the targets. He's faced some good defenses the last couple weeks, had the Colts. So let's just look. And then he went up against the Giants as well. Kirk actually caught the ball right at the 1-yard line and nearly had a game-winning touchdown. So Jags fans are feeling it right now. All right, Tina, we'll get to that one in a second here. Appreciate you dropping those questions. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys are getting value out of this, so if you're just watching, first off, comment. Second off, like and subscribe. We are almost at 200 subscribers, sitting at 196 right now. We've grown a lot as of late. We've got Star 2 Sit 1 shorts coming up on on Wednesday. And then also on Wednesday for week 8. Got plenty of case studies we'll be doing, and I answer each and every one of your comments. So make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe if you get value out of this content. Doing everything I can to give you guys the right information via research I'm conducting. Let's see, Bungalow Joe, we will talk about yours in a second right now, and then should I use my number 1 waiver priority on Gus Edwards? So we've got some good questions, guys. So just talking to Joseph here right now about Christian Kirk or Boyd rest of the season. So I think this one is mostly clear-cut just because of the prioritization on each team. We'll pull up stats just for fun. It looks a lot closer than I think it actually is. It's a heavy passing attack. It's an air assault, if you will, over in Cincinnati. When you talk about Tyler Boyd actually having a decent amount of usage for possibly the third option, I would definitely put Jamar Chase and T. Higgins ahead of him when all those guys are healthy. 29 receptions, 455 yards, 3 touchdowns. Look at the usage over the course of the last couple of weeks. These are things you like to see. I mean, those are 2 pretty bad defenses right now. The Saints have kind of fallen off, and then you look at the Atlanta Falcons. That's just a secondary that we love to expose in fantasy matchups. Joe Burrow was one of my he was one of the 2 for the Start 2 Sit 1 series last week. At the quarterback position, it was him and Dak, and Joe Burrow had a career day. So Tyler Boyd was not the only one who had a good day. I mean, T. Higgins did well. Jamar Chase got his. Christian Kirk, though, more receptions. I'm not really going to nitpick with yards, and he's got more scores as well. Tyler Boyd, more of a big play guy, but that's just kind of that run and gun or just air assault offense over in Cincinnati anyway. Christian Kirk usage, similar story. Was a little more consistent before 2 down weeks against Indianapolis and Houston. Although Indianapolis kind of got bailed out by a touchdown. Houston's stout defense despite the bad record of 1-4-1, as you can see in the bottom right of the screen. So I do like Kirk just a little bit more because I think he's the primary option. Boyd gets hurt here and there. Kirk's been pretty consistent so far. I could go either, to be honest with you. I just think that sometimes when the Bengals go up against a tougher defense, they're going to rely more on your Jamar Chase and your T. Higgins, and even your Hayden Hurst, who's been getting a lot of targets as well. Whereas with Christian Kirk, yes, there's Marvin Jones Jr., there's Zay Jones, there's Evan Ingram, but I feel like he is more of a primary option. He's been looked at more, but honestly, you could really go with either. I think I like Kirk a little more because Boyd is more reliant on the big play, and Kirk has more usage. He had a lot more usage before this just explosive week. I mean, you can kind of pick who you want to throw the ball to against Atlanta. Before that, we're talking about 300 yards through 6 weeks, which isn't bad, 50 yards a week. With Kirk, it's more of a reliable pattern here with the exception of that Houston game. Boyd, it's kind of hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. You got the one big week here. This one was good, and then but with a really nice week there as well. With Kirk, I just think you get a little more reliability. To be honest, you're still going to get a lot of targets both ways. If you want the lower floor, I would go Kirk. If you want the higher ceiling, go Boyd all day because he's going to have those explosive days like the one we saw against Atlanta and even the one we saw against the Jets as well, albeit on 5 targets, 4 big plays. Well, really one big play, 56 yards here. I mean, that's just him, though. 43-yarder, 60-yarder. I mean, he's the big play guy, and that's just what that offense is built on, throwing it over the top and beating the opposing defense on the back end. So higher ceiling, Tyler Boyd, lower floor, Christian Kirk. I'd really call them a wash otherwise, if I'm being honest, man. Yeah, that was me last year. The Rams. All right, Tino. We'll get to yours now. So let's try and get another win. We are now 2-5. Do I start running backs? All right. No Eckler. I feel that one. That's going to hurt a lot. I mean, you're talking about arguably the best fantasy running back in this day and age because he's getting all those pass catches. Herbert loves to dump the ball off to him. I mean, they've just got design play after design play etched around Herbert and Eckler. That duo has done a lot to win that team some football games. Brian Robinson, Damian Harris, and Eno Benjamin. Tino, Brian Robinson's getting a lot of usage, and I don't think they're straying away from him, to be honest. Eno Benjamin's the main guy right now before James Conner comes back. Let's check on the health status of that. It is Tuesday, so definitely monitor James Conner. Conner questionable. With how Eno's been playing, man. Yeah, that's all right, Tino. I don't think you need to pick anybody up. I mean, look, I do like how Eno's been playing. You got 4.6 yards a carry, top 25 in the league, a pair of touchdowns. Remember, it's limited usage as well. I really didn't get that feature back. Look until just a little bit ago. Decently involved in the passing game as well, talking 4, 3, and 3 receptions. I like, 5+ targets for a running back, and he's kind of been along those lines for the most part. If we look at game log, I just want to confirm that. Is he catching everything? Yeah, 5 targets, 3, 4. Before that, it was 1, 4, 4, 4, and these are with James Conner in the lineup. So James Conner's questionable right now. I don't think there's any reason for this team to rush him back. If James Conner's out, I like Eno Benjamin a lot. I really do. Yeah, 7th rounder. I mean, talk about a steal for that team. And then we've got Damian Harris. I want to show you this. No one to pick. Oh, I just read that. Yeah. I think you've got good options here for the most part. Just helping Tino out here with his fantasy questions, trying to improve to 3-5 going into this week. If you have any fantasy questions, if you just dropped in, we just did 6 people or 6 options you should pick up in terms of waiver wire pickups. Super low ownership rate. We're talking below 50%, in some case scenarios below 5%. That could help you out as we get through these bye weeks. We're in week 8 right now. Crazy NFL season so far, and we want to prepare you for it. So if you want to be prepared for it, if you want to get as many tips and tricks, as much research dedicated to your specific fantasy football scenario as possible, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. We're 4 away from 200. Spread the word, tell your friends, all of that good stuff. I do like Eno. Eno against the Vikings defense that's improving, but nonetheless. And then we have Damian Harris against the Jets. Mr. Robinson against the Colts, who could have been better on defense. I mean, they did okay. 19 points allowed to the Titans, but time of possession was bad. Turnovers were bad on the offensive end. Yeah, I've got my answer for you, Tino. So yeah, I like Eno for Tino, and then I like Brian Robinson as well, just from a usage standpoint. You look at Damian Harris, which is the last thing I wanted to bring up here before we move on. Yeah. Yeah, this one's... I was pretty convinced before. This is a no-brainer now. Tino, we want to look at usage. We're all about production. We're all about efficiency, right? But we can't get either of those two if we don't get usage. He's flirting around the 40% line in terms of usage, 10% of snaps. He was in for 9 snaps against the Chicago Bears. I really think Ramondre Stevenson, because of his performances as of late, and he didn't do too well against the Bears on the ground. He had that touchdown. but didn't average too many yards per carry, but then got involved in the passing game with a few catches as well. I think Ramondre Stevenson is kind of taking that role over, from a fantasy standpoint, and really just from a team standpoint as well. We're not seeing Damian Harris on the field a whole lot. 9 snaps, I don't like that at all. So I really do like Brian Robinson and Eno over a guy in Damian Harris, who I don't know if he's going to get used. And also, they're going up against the Jets defense that's been good. Quinnen Williams is going to fill those gaps. He's made it tough on opposing running backs before. We saw what he did with the two-headed backfield of Green Bay before. And I mean, in all honesty, that defense is a big reason they're winning. It wasn't just Breece Hall, who they're going to have to go without now, but it was that defense. So I think Damian Harris not getting a whole lot of usage, Tino, combined with the fact that he's going up against a pretty stout Jets defense, I don't like it for him. So yeah, give me Brian Robinson and give me Eno Benjamin pretty confidently. Just monitor that James Conner injury. Bungalow Joe, thanks for stopping in, man. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're getting value out of this. We'll address your question here. Trade away Keenan Allen and Deontay Foreman for St. Brown. Okay, I'm a little reluctant. I'm a little reluctant on that one because Keenan Allen, yes, he's just coming back from injury. Deontay Foreman, I really do think he could be locking down that running back 1 spot. He's one good week away from it. We got Tino saying, didn't think I'd ever sit anyone against the Jets. Yeah, that's 2022 for you, man. And then appreciate it. No problem, man. So Bungalow Joe, Keenan Allen, and Deontay Foreman for St. Brown. With St. Brown's injury as of late, and then we've got other pieces coming back, I still do like, I just want to preface this. I'm on St. Brown in general as a start on most weeks, but now he gets concussed. We have the NFL protocol with concussions kind of adjusting, acclimating, evolving, as you will, after the Tua Tagovailoa scenario, where he seriously should not have been in that football game, especially after what happened against the Bills, then comes back, plays the Bengals, and it gets worse. That scary scenario. So we've got that. I don't like that package for St. Brown. At least get a 2 for 2. Yes, Keenan Allen's coming back from an injury, but I feel like at least with him, it's not a head injury. And we do have a guy who, the ball's going to get spread around to him a lot. The offense of the Chargers is really firing on all cylinders despite the loss against the Seahawks. They're a really good fantasy team. You still get good production out of Herbert. You get good production out of Mike Williams, Eckler when he plays, and all that good stuff. The bye will be gone for both teams, so we've got that. But I really think that you have a starting running back possibly in Deontay Foreman. And if you want to trade him away, that's fine. But him and Keenan Allen for a guy in St. Brown who hasn't really played a full week in almost a month now, I'm not a big fan of that. So try and get a 2 for 2. Yes, I understand Allen's going through an injury as well. But when he comes back, I really do think he'll get his. And, St. Brown, I love him, but I think you could be getting gypped. And imagine he gets hurt and Foreman goes off. There's just too many scenarios where it could go wrong. Maybe Foreman loses the job to Hubbard, but we don't really know what's going to happen there yet. Whereas I think Foreman's got so much upside. Allen, when he comes back, really could be firing on all cylinders. And St. Brown, he's one more injury away from, especially if it's to the head. Now what? You got an injury-prone wide receiver, and you just gave away a top 10, top 15 wide receiver in fantasy when healthy, and a running back with plenty of untapped potential, judging by what we just saw last week. So I like that a lot. Joseph, should I use my number 1 waiver priority on Gus Edwards? Joseph, let's go back to some of the ones that I was looking at and just kind of match them up against what you said. I don't think this guy's going to be available. Well, you said you're 1-6, so you might get dibs on waivers. Yeah, you have number 1 waiver priority. If he's still available, I like Deontay Foreman a lot. If you're in a deeper league, I like this move, but I don't like it a ton otherwise. Just because I think the Bears are still going to use Montgomery. It might be 50-50. Herbert's getting his, but it's hit or miss, right? Let's look at other options out there. We're going to focus on less than 50% ownership rate so I can try and cater this to your league. And then you're just going to kind of have to play call and response here with me and tell me if they are available. I'll go in a 10-team league here to kind of span it out. And then Joseph, would this be, are you looking for a flex or just strictly a running back or the best player available in general? Check back here. Best player available that I can use to trade for a better player. I like it. Okay, 8-team league, so we've got some wiggle room here. Probably got some pretty good talent in the flex. I'm going to expand it to flex just in general because people really like guys who, you know, let's just open it up. Let's triple what we could be looking at in terms of tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs, because why the heck not? If we're looking at Gus Edwards, you know, you have to question what the appeal is. 16.3% roster despite averaging 18.6 points. It was obviously a monster last week. That's why there is such a high amount of focus on him right now in that run-heavy offense. Talk about an offense that ran the ball 73% of the time against the Browns to pull out the win. Out of Rutgers, Big Ten guy. I didn't have to really... Well, that's a lie. I was going to say didn't really have to rely on touchdowns to have a good day. It would have been 6.6 points without. Wasn't really too involved in the passing game. But 4.1 yards per carry, not too shabby. He was obviously that option when they got in the red zone. I think, you know what? I think out of all the options I'm seeing here right now, even for flex, just want to go back before I promise that. When you're talking about trading somebody, I mean, this is a guy you could really bait. He had 2 touchdowns, and without it, he would have had less than 7 points. I like that a lot. I like Michael Gallup now that Dak is back. We're talking about guys that he really does like. You know, Dalton Schultz is owned in a lot of leagues despite just going off. I think everybody kind of knew that chemistry was going to come back once Mr. Prescott was healthy and Schultz was going to get his usage. Yeah, other than Gus Edwards, I mean, Deontay Foreman. Tight ends are at such a premium. You could look at like an Evan Ingram. Been looking at him for a while. It's kind of hard to find tight ends with the attention that he's been getting. People talk about him dropping a lot of balls, but I mean, look at the targets in general. Nearly 40. He's got 28 receptions. Pretty consistent production. We talk about 10.7 points this week, 9 last week, 12.9. And these are without touchdowns. He doesn't have a touchdown this year. And he's still one of the better fantasy tight ends in the league who are only owned by a third. But honestly, I think you got to go with Gus Edwards when you talk about just sheer availability. So yeah, go with Gus. I don't really need a running back since I have ETN, Walker, Kamara, and Brian Robinson. I'm going to pick up Cordero Patterson as well. So I'm picking up running backs because of how valuable they are in fantasy. So I was thinking trade. Yeah, I mean, if you have a surplus of the position, you lose nothing, right? I mean, we talk about what I kind of want people to do with Paris Campbell. Not owned by a whole lot, and I really don't think he's on the radar. I think everybody is in Deontay Foreman mode right now. So Paris Campbell coming off 2 pretty good weeks. You could bait somebody into that if you have a surplus of wide receivers. But if you're talking about using that number 1 waiver wire reservation, if you will, whatever you want to call it, for some trade bait, I like Gus Edwards a lot. Maybe even try and flip him before this week and then get somebody at a position where you're maybe a little bit weaker, win 2 in a row, and get some things rolling, Joseph. Chris Genova, I think. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'll just say Chris. Thanks for joining the stream. Make sure you like and subscribe if you get value out of it. 4 away from 200 subs, so we're really shooting for it, trying to help you all out as much as possible. Any trade ideas for my team? I'm going to need a record because I kind of want some context there, Chris. And then let me know how many teams are in your league as well. We've got Jalen Hurts. We've got Jalen Waddle. So Jalen squared. DJ Moore, who's had a couple of nice weeks as of late. Running backs, Austin Eckler is going to be on bye. Aaron Jones, Mark Andrews, Adam Thielen, Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is such a fantasy hack at the tight end position. Absolutely love it. Romeo Doubs, Benjamin. Latavius Murray, I'm assuming. And then Sony Michel. Yeah, Chris, how many teams are in your league? Jones for Swift. Yeah, because Swift has been hurt and Jones' usage kind of has been down. The Packers have been abandoning the run. So that's something I would maybe look at. I'm not big on Jones, and I'm really... Okay, 10-team, half-point PPR. All right, so we're going to prioritize, bruiser runners who are getting a lot of production a little more than most. Obviously, keep Hurts. Keep Waddle now that Tua is back. Moore could be somebody because he's had a couple nice weeks, but what on earth is going on in Carolina? Well, now they beat the Bucs, so who knows? I really just think the Bucs are more bad than the Panthers. Surprised anybody there. Andrews, you got to keep, unless you're looking for depth. Chris, what's your record as well? Thielen's possible. Hill is possible. Doubs, just got no targets, so when you talk about buy low, sell high, you're not going to get a whole lot for Doubs right now. Eno's an interesting one. Latavius Murray, maybe. Sony Michel. I feel like we're talking a little too deep for 10-team to really try and get some trade value. At least with him being the centerpiece, right? He could be a depth piece for sure. So if we were thinking any trade ideas in general, okay. Yeah, with Eckler out and you have Jones, try packaging A. Jones and DJ Moore. I was thinking that. Otherwise, if you really see somebody who's starving for running back depth, you could go Aaron Jones and Latavius Murray for, definitely a better running back when you're talking about a DeAndre Swift. You could even shoot higher, to be honest. You really could. 5-2, second place right now. I wouldn't make too many aggressive moves, but maybe you can use some of your lower end picks. My rule of thumb is when you're not doing so well, you use some of your better guys. If you were 2-5 and 1-6 and you had Mark Andrews, I'm telling you, go trade Mark Andrews, and let's say you're hypothetically, right, wide receiving core is bad. Mike Evans, go get Mike Evans, Mr. Consistent, 1,000 yards in 8 straight seasons, and then go get a pretty good depth piece like an Eno, even though you already have him right now. But I'm thinking, because James Conner will be back and healthy soon, I think Eno definitely takes a hit. I'm not sure he's completely taken the job away quite yet. He's done well. I like Latavius Murray and Aaron Jones for maybe because Leonard Fournette had a really rough week this week, but actually if you look at it, and I wanted to pull this up from before. Tom Brady's all types of struggling right now, right? We did a short on how Geno Smith is a much more appealing target as opposed to Tom Brady, despite the fact that Tom Brady has much greater ownership. I would not mind Aaron Jones and maybe a Latavius Murray or even a Sony Michel for this guy. We're talking about most targeted running backs out of the backfield in the passing game. Guys you expect to see: Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey. Leonard Fournette's number 3. I mean, he was really just phased out of the offense because Tampa Bay had to go throw mode in a 21-3 game that I still can't wrap my head around. I'm a big J.C. Horn guy, but didn't think that defense was going to be able to hold a pretty healthy Bucs offense to 3 points. I like Leonard Fournette. Look at the targets, man. 4, 6, 7, 11, 6. These are anomalies. Week 1, everything's random. And then what on earth happened against the Panthers, I still can't tell you, and I might not ever be able to. Alvin Kamara is a good one that you could package for. You probably wouldn't have to package Jones and Eno for him. Maybe Jones and Murray. But I think you could do Jones and Murray for Leonard Fournette because of the sheer production that we've seen out of Fournette. In terms of a pass catcher. And just an overall, well-oiled, producing running back. 3.5 yards per carry is something a lot of people get a little wary at when they look at it. But we've got high usage. Even here, everyone's going to panic at this. They had to go throw heavy against Kansas City. 3 rushes for -3 yards. What on earth? 7 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. Saved it. That's not just a good day. That is a phenomenal day. Over 18 points on a day where you rushed at less than 3 yards. People forget that Leonard Fournette is multi-dimensional. He's a bigger guy, getting a little older when you compare him to the rest of the running back community. This is an anomaly, and week 1's always an anomaly in general. So, and even so, when he wasn't getting the targets there, he had a bulk. And he still does get a bulk of the carries out of the backfield, especially when you talk about a Tampa Bay offense that's really struggling. So Chris, maybe go after Leonard Fournette and try and package up, Mr. Aaron Jones, who hasn't getting used a whole lot. And that's more on a consistent basis. That's a Packers team that continues to abandon the run. Saw it against the Jets, saw it against the Commanders. And instead, take Aaron Jones, take Latavius Murray. I like Eno. Maybe he does take that spot, but we don't know yet. Take Aaron Jones, take Latavius Murray, and try and get Leonard Fournette. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay. Yeah, Joseph doing some. And yeah, another rule I just want to say, guys, help each other out in the comments. If you got suggestions, this is a fantasy community. If something I say tip-wise doesn't resonate with you and you have something better you think you could replace it with that, let me know and we'll add it to the archive here and we'll just help each other out as much as possible. The goal here is to provide sound research to allow all of you to excel in fantasy. And maybe it doesn't have to be my research. So I've gotten offered DJ Moore for either Kareem Hunt or Christian Kirk. Not sure if I want to keep DJ, though. Now with no other target competition there. Yeah, that's tough, right? None. Robbie Anderson, gone. And that's kind of why we saw DJ Moore do pretty well, along with the fact that the Bucs just played horribly. Chris, we talk about DJ Moore not having Robbie Anderson to compete with anymore. Not having Christian McCaffrey to compete with anymore for targets. So DJ Moore for Hunt or Kirk. I really wouldn't go after Hunt because of a low usage, and I talked about this with Joseph before. Do we really want to rely on a trade when a guy's just getting low usage over the course of the last couple weeks? Maybe it stays that way. Then we have a quarterback changing. Too many variables there. Kirk is enticing. Kirk is a guy who gets a lot of usage in a 1A, 1B, 1C. And I really don't even want to call him that anymore in Jacksonville because I think Kirk gets a decent amount of usage in general. Wide receiving core. Definitely don't do it for Hunt because we've got low usage. We've got a new quarterback coming in. We've got the possibility for a trade. Who knows what happens there? Let's see. Yeah, with DJ Moore being the only option, you've got like an older Brandon Cooks scenario. You know, it's a wide receiver one on a bad team. Not for Hunt. For Kirk, let's look at usage. Let's see. And then after this question, I think we will close it out, guys. But if you have any questions at all, just leave the question after pretty much. After the stream is done, and I'll answer it as soon as possible. Just wanted to pull this up real quick in terms of Hunt. And or Kirk. Kirk is getting those targets. I would take him if we're dealing DJ Moore. He's got 4 touchdowns. He's the main guy that they're going to in the red zone. Out of 8 touchdowns on the team, Kirk's gotten 4 of them so far. So I really do like that. So if you're going to go for one of those, go for Kirk, but maybe even ride it out with DJ Moore because he is quite literally all that is left on the Panthers right now. They're losing a lot, and I love wide receiver ones on losing teams because you're going to pass the ball a lot when you're down multiple possessions with not much time to go. So, Chris, if you're going to make that trade, go for Kirk. Otherwise, keep Moore. Pocket him. Joseph, appreciate you, Corey. Have a good one. Till next time. Absolutely, Joseph. If you have any questions that pop up throughout the week, we're going to do more streams. We're going to do more shorts. Leave those comments. Absolutely. You know, trying to help out as many people as possible. Speaking of as many people as possible. 4 subscribers away, guys. Let's get to 200 today. I appreciate all the support so far, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to give you guys in-depth research to help out your fantasy team. Calvo, Cooks, or Sutton this week. Cortland Sutton's been getting a greater segment of those targets. You know, they had a tough week with Russ out, but I do like Sutton from a usage standpoint. Let me check one thing. I apologize. It's Tuesday, so I'm still trying to memorize these schedules here. Sutton or Cooks? No problem, Chris. Anytime. Sutton against the Jags secondary. Cooks against the Titans. Titans have actually stood up the last couple of weeks, and I don't think that offense in Houston is getting much going on. And despite being a losing team, you know, I say losing teams love to throw the ball a lot. They're the exception. They use Damian Pierce like no tomorrow. So I like Sutton, Calvo. Much rather have Kirk. Joseph talking. I'm back. Josh will be the last one. I'm back. I ended up trading London for Pickens, so now I have Deontay and Pickens at wide receiver 2 and a flex. Any idea from here? Josh, if you want to keep wheeling and dealing, Pickens' stock is pretty far up. I would almost just stick with him because he's starting to get a lot more usage despite the fact it's Mitch, it's Pickett, it's Mitch, it's Pickett. I think Pickens is really evolving into that possible wide receiver number 1. Maybe you deal Deontay after a good week, wait for the value to spike, package him with a low-end depth piece, and try and go after a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin because I do think that Bucs offense is going to get back on track eventually. It's just going to take a bit. So, guys, that's all the time I have right now. But if you have any comments, any questions at all about your fantasy team going into Week 8, trade deals you could be striking, waiver wire targets, people you should drop, when do I cut somebody loose? We'll have a video dedicated to that going down the road in the week. Start to sit ones, anything like that. You know, who should I go with? Who should I completely ditch? That type of thing. Should I even be making deals given my current scenario, size of my league, my performance, all that good stuff? Just leave those in the comments section, and we will address them as soon as possible. As always, I'm Corey. This is Armchair Athletes. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your night.